Ryan Ragland talking with a one-time World of Outlaw champion, Steve Francis, and now technical director for the World of Outlaw late models.
Series director.
Series director?
Yeah.
Okay, used to be technical director.
For
now
Lucas Oil.
For Lucas Oil.
Yeah, when Brian Carter hired me with World of Outlaws, I was the competition director, and Casey Schumann was the series director. And then when Casey departed to go to I-70, I took over as series director in November.
Okay, so I guess the main reason why I wanted to get with you was I've always wondered about the relationship with an ex-driver being in an official role with a series and the relationship with an ex-driver to the drivers. But I kind of wanted to go back, because one thing when I was reading up a little bit, and one thing that I didn't realize that really hit me hard was you I'm not going to say an epiphany, but you kind of had a wake-up call of when it was about time for you to retire in Granite City, when you had an incident with a clut hitting you in the helmet and kind of setting you to the point where it was the first time that you sat out a few weeks. And it all of a sudden when I read that, I'm like, that's Josh Richards at Eldora. And then I kind of relate the two, that kind of the same way with Josh Richards, kind of set him to the point where he's kind of stepped back and reanalyzed things.
Well, I had always been the guy when I was in my early 30s that I said I would never be in a race car past 45, and I raced until I was 50, I guess. I got hit at Granite City when I was 48, and I spent 5 weeks sleeping in a chair sitting upright because it had broke my nose, my eye socket, my cheekbone, broke all the cartilage loose in both ears. So it was a pretty good shot. It was a wake-up call. I technically probably should have probably called it quits then, but I still enjoyed the sport. And when I got out of the car at Charlotte at the World Finals in 2017, I knew I was done racing. The only person that knew that was my wife, and we really didn't have a plan of what we were going to do then. And somehow the good Lord above always provides for you when you kind of need it. And I think the next day or 2 days later, I got a call from Lucas Oil to be the technical director for Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, and I did that 4 years. But I kind of I had got to a point where I was in my mid-50s at that point, and I decided I needed to figure out a way to maybe not be working so hard all the time. And with all the things, I had a truck and trailer and everything that I kept all the time. And I don't want to say working hard, but just maybe less physical end of it. So my parents had been in the used car business. I always liked the old Corvettes and the old pickup trucks and stuff like that. So I had a little bit of knowledge of how to mess and trade and stuff like that. So I was going to kind of get into some of the old cars and just piddle a little bit with that, and kind of step away from the sport altogether. And about 2 days after I left Lucas, Brian Carter called me, and president of World Racing Group, which owns the World of Outlaws, and asked me if I would be interested in joining the World of Outlaws Late Model Series. And I wasn't exactly sure. If my first response was probably not. I think I want to take some time and just kind of really step away from the sport, because again, I said at 45 you'd never see me at a racetrack again.
Right.
So I went way past that at that point. And he said, well, think about it a week or so, and he said, I'll call you back. And I said, okay. So my wife and I sat and talked a lot, and with my mom and dad and her mom and dad and my daughter, and we kind of realized that about 70% of the people we know are still in the dirt late model world. So we kind of thought, well, okay, maybe. So Brian called me back the next week. I think it was like a Thursday night or Wednesday night or something like. I think it was a Wednesday night. And he said, hey, would you be interested? And I said, well, give me some details. He said, well, just build it like a racer would want to do it. However they would want to do it, build it like a racer would really want to do it. And I kind of took that as a little bit of a challenge. And he put Amanda in the role of kind of a new department that was the fan experience, and making sure the fan enjoys the event as much as the racing. They have other things to enjoy, so that's
right.
Another department in World Racing Group that we have, and that kind of gave us both a challenge that we might have both needed at that point.
Right.
So kind of the rest is history. As far as the relationship with the racer, I've pretty much experienced about anything that they can, so I can relate to them. I've paid all my own bills. I've paid for the tires. I've paid for the motors. I've had the good nights. I've had the bad nights. I've, raced, for lack of a better word, the Dolly Parton purses. And, our goal with the World of Outlaws is to have the strongest purses, maybe not the most to win, but the strongest, deepest purses, because I want 15 healthy guys going up and down the road with us. I don't want 4 guys that are breaking bank and the other 11 struggling to get up and down the road.
Just barely making it.
Yeah. So, we changed the point structure. We changed the winner circle structure. I had a lot of help from everybody at World Racing Group, including, Tyler Bachman and Casey Schumann, that was the series director before. Matt Curl, that had worked with the World of Outlaws. Matt gave me a lot of information and helped me a lot of things. There was, Brian Carter, Jeff Hockman, the list goes on of people that, were able to advise me. And even to this day, my wife will look at me sometimes and say, take your helmet off and put your promoter hat on, or take your promoter hat off and put your racer helmet back on. And, so she's really good at keeping me balanced out in it too.
Well, her family background is in the racing area too. So with her background, she can kind of see it from a different angle and kind of go, hey, this, kind of what you're saying, that third eye kind of look at it, go, maybe if you look at it this way, then you'll start understanding a little bit more of what she's seeing, or from a third person's point of view.
Well, her parents promoted racetracks, for ever and ever and ever, and in the Kentucky area. And, so when her and I got married, it kind of was the racer and the promoter type situation. And she was able to open my eyes to some things, and I was able to open, their eyes to some things. And hopefully between the two of us, we've been able to kind of put that in a balance for World Racing Group and the World of Outlaws.
Backing up just a second, the way that you got into it was a little interesting. That I believe it was 17 that you ended up going to Charlotte, and you didn't have any plans on running. You were just going to take the motorhome there, and you were just going to kind of watch. And then Lucas Oil had their guy that was leaving, going to be a crew chief on the team, and it worked out just perfect timing wise for you to even start getting into it. And that, as you said, kind of left you to the point where you could stay active in it.
It did. And I again, good Lord always seems to provide what you need at a time that he thinks you needed. It might not always be when you want it, but it seems
right.
to. And my life is a pretty good example of that. I stepped out of driving race cars to not knowing what was happening, to 2 days later becoming the tech director for Lucas Oil, to leaving Lucas Oil thinking I'm going to probably go into the car business, and a week later I'm competition director for World Racing Group. So it was it just seems like those things have played out that way for me.
When you get into situations that you've been into, number one, drivers are going to respect you. Plus, you're still overseeing guys that you've raced against still. Now you have the younger guys, or guys that would watch you run, and they know the style of driver you were. You were clean and respectful, but you were aggressive and everything. And is there a time where they come up to you and say, "Look, this is what we're looking at"? Is that when you switch from the series director hat and go to the driver helmet?
Well, I don't necessarily think that's maybe the correct statement, but if I have two guys that are having disputes, I can generally talk to both of them, because I've probably been on both sides of that dispute.
Right.
And I can explain the other's viewpoint to the other, and at least get to a thing where they might not be best buddies anymore, but at least they're social with each other and
agree
keep
to
going.
disagree and keep
yes,
going.
Yes, and keep going. I am a fairly firm believer in, you race a man the way he races you, and I don't want to get involved until we start involving other people and tearing up other people's equipment and so on and so forth. At that point, I will get involved.
Right.
I try to stay out of it for that as far as things on the racetrack. As far as I talk to most of our drivers, I talk to pretty much every one of our drivers, and I want them to feel like they have at least, they have a voice and their voice is heard. Now, do we always agree or do we always go with each one of them suggestions? No, because, I still have to wear that promoter hat.
Right.
But yet, I want these guys to be able to come and talk to me and explain concerns. And am I going to fix them all that night? No, I'm not going to fix it that night. But at least if they can say, hey, man, this travel on this trip didn't work out good for us. Can we figure out a way to map that differently next year? Well, we can do things like that. Or, hey, I got 5 of them that come to me at one point and say, hey, man, this thing is too dominant on the top. Can we do that to make our racing better? They all want to put on a great show for the fans, too. So I want them to have a voice. Now, ultimately, it still comes down to the sanctioning body runs the race. But you at least want them to be able to feel comfortable enough with you to come and talk to you about what's going on and what their issues are, positive or negative.
When I look at that, it's, like you were saying, talking to a couple drivers and being on both sides, it's like when you have the drivers meeting, they understand that, granted, you're an official, but you've been there, and they may, like kind of like you said, they may not agree with it, but coming from someone that's been on that side, that's what they're going to go with because it may be better all the way around.
Well, I respect every one of them for what they're doing, and I think, I think our group respects what, I've been fortunate enough to do and what I'm currently doing. And my comment to all of them has been, if you run the whole series all year, I promise there will be a point this year that you will be mad at me. I can promise you that if we run 55 races, there will be a point that every one of them...
If I never make you upset, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, well, situations are going to make that happen.
Right.
This is high pressure business, high dollar, big money stuff. So, there's going to be a point that you're going to be mad. I can't think of any series director that I wasn't mad at some point every year.
Right.
But I respected them for what they were doing, and the ultimate goal is we're in this together, because without the series, the drivers don't have the protection and the unity to raise purses and do things like that.
Right.
But without the drivers, the series has nothing to go to the promoter with. So we're in this together, and that's what I'm promoting as much as anything is the series and the drivers and the tracks. We're in this together to make it the best we can be. So if one starts tearing the other down, the chain's broken. So, that comes back to where we have those conversations about, okay, what is the problem? Let's get this going before it starts a big divide between the track, the owner, the track, the series, the driver, the car owner, whatever that may be.
Right.
Let's try to work on find a common ground before it gets out of hand.
You were talking about you were wanting to get in the series when they called you to be the series director. You said you wanted about 15 or 16 cars. That's about where you're at now, and it's a pretty stout, solid 16. I mean, there's no fluff in there.
No, this group of guys that we have this year has been. My best comparison is back in the original World of Outlaws year 03, 04, I think it was. This group does a lot of things together. They enjoy a lot of things together. We're fortunate to have Case as a sponsor. They just yesterday they took us through the factory here in Wichita, put us all on a bunch of equipment out there and let us play around. And we've got Bobby and Gordy kind of playing chicken and 2 skid steers and doing donuts in them, and we got Dustin Walker running out through there wide open, and you might see Chris Madden and Johnny Scott and Shane Clanton playing golf together, and you might have Bobby Pearson, Brandon Shepard, and Logan Martin going to Niagara Falls together. So those are things that I really enjoy, back to like the old days of racing, that you had me, Dale McDowell, Rick Eckert, that we traveled together. We did a lot of things together. We went to amusement parks together. We did those things. You walked down through this pit area last night, and I promise you there was a cook out of Brent Larson's truck last night.
Yeah, Melanie I saw that, and Melanie it was looking really good.
I promise she cooked something there. You go on down the pit area, and you got Kay Dillard and Brandon Shepard's group bringing one of Kate's crew guys' birthday cake. So, that is what I enjoy seeing when I walk through this pit area is, this group likes being together. And I'll take this group of guys that we've got right now. They are a great group of guys.
And that starts the solidification of a continuous, solid year in, year out of guys that are going to run the series.
Well, it does. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to have the exact same 16, 17 guys do it year after year after year. Rides change, business obligations, family things change.
Right.
But if you have that solid 10 to 12 core every year, that you add the other 3 or 4 new guys too, because we want a rookie program, and we want those things that are growing the sport long term.
Right. So let's jump into things that are going on now. I know there's still a lot of people that I run into that don't understand the droop rule, and some people say, well, it's just something extra, whatever like that. Ricky Thornton Jr. had the issue when he had the chain break. That's just part of what's going to happen. Real in a quick layman's terms, the purpose of the droop rule is?
Well, really, people can say what they want, but it takes some technology out of the car. Because let's just go back to the 39-inch rear deck with a 15-inch nose deck. Well, you had double, triple stack springs, everything else in these race cars. Not that you don't still see some of that, but now you can see race cars win races on 4 conventional springs, 2004 style.
Right.
Now, they're not the same numbers and all that kind of same load numbers, all that, but it took some of that out, because all the 39-inch deck deal did, and all the stack springs and all that stuff did, was make technology to get the car down to roll the 10 foot past the tech guy, and then the car is back up in the air at 57 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So at least when we got this thing controlled to the 51 inches, it made it at least brought some technology back out. There's still technology in the sport. You're never going to take the technology out of the sport.
And
I don't want to take the technology out of the sport. But I can tell you that when we had a 39-inch deck height rule, there was never a night as a tech guy that I didn't argue with a minimum of 5 guys about 39 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this guy squatted his car more than you squatted this car. The ground's not perfect right here. Different thing, whatever.
Right.
With the droop rule, legitimately you argue with one guy, not argue, disagree, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Every 5 to 10 races. And generally you'll find an issue or what happened or why they got off, or they'll figure out why they got off or what happened or how it happened after that. In general, most of the cars that win races do not push the limit. Not giving away anybody's secrets or anything like that, but most cars that win races are right at 50 inches.
Right.
They're within, they're an inch. So they allowed themselves some room because they feel like that 1 inch is not going to win or lose them the race.
No.
But it can definitely get them thrown out of the race.
Right.
We throw a guy out for a pound of weight at the end.
Yeah.
So nobody seems to have a problem with that. It's just, it's different, and most people don't like change.
Well, and the technology from, literally from when you were running to now, even with the way it was, I'm going to say 5 years ago, 4 years ago, is astronomical. So that kind of falls into what you were saying of keeping the technology out of it, because if you don't, your expenses can be even more than what it is now.
Oh yeah, it can, you can, and there's still a lot of people that spend a lot of money on technology and engineers and things like that to try to figure out how to get the most out of things based off what we knew before and what we know now with the current rule package. How do you get back to get that speed back? That's
right.
Any sport, any organization that makes a rule, you better plan the 3, 4, 5, 6 steps out on that plan of what's going to happen next, and next, to make sure that financially you don't make it worse. And that's what we try to think as much as we can. And again, this is where some of the dialogue from the race teams comes back to. Well, if you do this, it'll go here, 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 and here. Well, one guy has an opinion, he goes there, there, and there, and one guy says it goes here, here, and here. So you have to kind of decipher where that lands at and try to do your best ability of keeping it within reason, because we still want and need the regional, local Saturday night racer to feel like he has a chance to come and win a World of Outlaws event. And I don't ever want to disrespect that guy, because I was that guy too. I did that too. So, ultimately the goal is still the same as it was when I started. You start off at your Saturday night track, then you become the regional racer, then you venture out a few nationals, then you become a national touring guy. That is the general procession of how it goes. Gordy Gundecker's probably a good example of that right now. Nick Hoffman coming out of the modified, a good example of that. This is Nick's rookie season. Then you have the veterans of Chris Madden, Dennis Erb, Shane Clanton. You have kind of the intermediate guys that have done some national touring and done some summer national regional. The Brian Shirley, Kyle Bronson group in there.
Right.
You had Kay Dillard that's been out on the national level, come back, built modifieds, come back out on the national level. So we have such a great mix of guys right now that, this is Bobby Pierce's really, even though Bobby Pierce has won World 100 and North-South 100 and however long his list of wins is.
Right.
This is his first attempt at a national tour. And, these guys have just been, all of them have been a really pleasure to work with this year.
Did you ever think it was going to the point that you were going to have to check guys for watches before they go out on the track? Because right now that's the latest thing that I've heard, that you've had to check. Okay, make sure you're not wearing your smartwatch or whatever before you go out on the track.
We all know about text to talk, or talk to text, I'm sorry. That's not a secret. The signaling thing has gotten, that's the hot topic right now.
Right.
Next week it'll be something else, or next month, whatever. But that's the hot topic right now, is the signal stick and the driver communication to radios and so on and so forth. And, I was a guy that raced when we had radios, and I was fortunate, I had my brother and, Mark Richards, some of them guys at that time that were on my radio channel. So I had some of the best in the business on my radio channel. And I'm not a fan of I feel like that hurts the quality of the race. But at the same time, again, we're back to technology. Does the technology that allows teams to do certain things communication-wise, talk to text, or text to talk, I keep saying that wrong, or double receivers, whatever, to the guy that doesn't have that technology or doesn't have that ability, I don't want that gap.
Right.
So anything we can do to prevent that gap, we're going to try to do as a group.
Well, and that's driver mode. That's owner mode. You find out where you can get that little edge, and you come up to that line and just see how far you can get across it and get away with it.
Well, you'd hope nobody crosses the line, because it doesn't matter to me. I will treat every one of these guys, from pick any name you want to pick on our list.
Maybe I should say bend the line a little bit, not really cross it.
I think these guys are all respect what Kenny Canada, who's my tech director, and where he's at with it, and he's kind of drawing lines in the sand, and I've supported him in the lines where he's put them at. And it doesn't matter to us. We will treat the Saturday night guy the same as we will treat, I think Chris Madden's leading the points right now, so I'll use Chris Madden's name. The same as I'll treat Chris Madden, Bobby Pierce, Kyle Bronson, Brian Shirley, Shane Clanton. It doesn't matter who they are. They all put their racing suit on exactly the same way, and they will all be treated the same by World Racing Group.
Last two questions, and if you can't ask this to understand fully, just how entertaining was it to drive for Clint Boyer? Because I got to be thinking that's just not a normal everyday relationship between driver and owner.
Nah, Clint was a lot of fun to be around. Now, actually, you know, when you really want to get serious about that team, Clint Boyer's name was on it, but really his brother Casey kind of was our day-to-day. You know, Clint was very busy in Cup racing
Right.
when I was doing that, and very popular in the Cup world, and it had a lot of benefits. You know, the race teams went to a lot of Cup races with Clint, hung out with him at the track. You know, you got in certain areas, you got to see certain things. You know, you got to be in the, you know, have hot passes and be down there. And but Clint as a person is the guy that you see on TV. But you know, we've had a lot of fun with Clint. Enjoy hanging out with him. Actually, I stopped in Emporia on my way out here to Wichita, pulled in a fuel stop, and his dad pulled in behind me and stood there and talked for a while. So, you know, it was good to see Pops and him again. I talked to Casey Boyer probably still every 2 to 3 weeks. You know, Casey's Clint Boyer's brother, and Casey was the one that was our day-to-day, I guess you call him manager.
Right.
You know, of the race team.
He's the operations manager.
Yeah. So, you know, I still have a relationship with all those guys. Still talk to them. But yeah, Clint was a lot of fun. You know, I had a connection when they had the Prelude thing, and I had the Mopar cars, and Michigan Geyser, who now works for Tony Stewart, set me up with Ryan Newman, and I didn't know Ryan. And you know, Ryan kind of has a different personality than Clint, but yet they're a lot alike too. They have a lot of fun together.
Yeah.
You know, they have a lot of fun, and Ryan and I, you know, we don't talk as much as I talk with Clint or them guys, but still talk with him every once in a while. And, you know, he's a lot of fun. You know, love them NASCAR guys. It's they're regular guys too. You know, yeah, they've maybe made a lot more money or something like that, but they like having fun, and generally most of them are race fans too.
And how did it come about that you got officially named the Kentucky Colonel?
I am a true honorary Kentucky Colonel. I have a card they send me every year, and like a little window sticker you put on your car and all that stuff too. So I think it was the year I won my first Stars Championship. Richard Cunningham nominated me, and the governor at the time was, I think, John Y. Brown. He accepted it and made me an honorary Kentucky Colonel.
That had just the, I mean, obviously it's probably not something you thought that, you know, would happen, but then all of a sudden you're the Kentucky Colonel, and you go back out on the track, and then now it's the Kentucky Colonel Steve Francis.
That's the nickname that probably, you know, I had the three-wheel bandit nickname there for a little while, you know, because we carried the left front wheel in the cars back in different setup, different style of race car then, and so, you know, we had that nickname, but the Kentucky Colonel is the one that stuck the longest. You know, I just like Darrell Lanigan was the Bluegrass Bandit, you know, so that's kind of the one that stuck the longest.
Well, when I got with you, I asked for like 10 minutes, and we've been going on almost 30, and this has been absolutely entertaining. I've loved it. Longer than I thought. Greatly appreciative to you for spending the half hour. Is, you know, granted we're not outside when it's, you know, 100 degrees index, which probably doesn't upset you too much, but now it's time to get to promote the series director hat back on, get the shoes back on outside in the heat, and get this great race for Wichita going on tonight for the 30,000, because I have a feeling this thing's going to be a barn burner.
We hope so. You know, John Allen and his staff here at 81 Speedway, I will be honest, you know, I hadn't joined the series much before we came out here in Humboldt last year, and I was like, ooh, you know, I was kind of looking at the history, and like the last time the Outlaws were here in like 17, it wasn't a very successful event, and John Allen and these guys really went to work and have made this place a beautiful facility, you know, and they're continually upgrading and doing things better and better and better. And John talked about, you know, I want to build this into a bigger event. I think here at 81, I think I can do a lot better here. And we talked about 2 or 3 different options and agreed that this was probably going to be our best one. And we were tickled to death with last night, you know, with the car count, and, you know, 38 cars, 38 super late models in Kansas is a pretty good number.
Right.
Crowd was great last night. Fortunate we got a case factory right here, you know, the largest case factories right here in Wichita, so that played into great. You know, we got to go over there, we got to do the tour over there, so it's really turned it into a great weekend out here for us.
And we talked last year when Shepard, you know, I may say dominated, but he did what Shepard does here. And I've talked to Shepard. He's really liking it. Bobby Pierce was really liking it last night, and we talked last year that you were kind of surprised. Ben Shelton even tweeted, I think it was either in the middle of the race last year or right after. He goes, "Guys, this place is legit."
And that's again, we keep talking about goals and things, and that's one of my goals as series director, is to schedule events at racetracks that want to improve, want to build, want to do the work that it takes to be successful. And John Allen and his staff here are 100% that way. You go Adam Stewart and David Miller at Talladega Short Track. That racetrack's been around forever. 81's been around a long time.
Yep.
But they're continually now upgrading and making it greater and better. And that's the people that we really want to be involved with.
Well, like I said, I've greatly appreciated it. This has been entertaining as anything. I know your phone's gone off. You've got things you got to do, but a huge thanks for spending the time with us on the Racing Boys. And the series is looking great, and the rest of the year is going to be nothing but entertaining.
Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it.